What if I told you that a man who lived 2,500 years ago still decides what your children learn in school today? What if this same man's ideas shape how billion-dollar companies operate, how governments make decisions, and how families raise their kids across the globe? And what if this man never wrote a single book, never built an empire, never commanded an army? He was just a teacher. But here's the thing that will blow your mind. This teacher's influence is so deep, so embedded in our world, that you've probably lived by his principles without even knowing his name. His fingerprints are on everything from the way Silicon Valley runs to why Asian students dominate math competitions, from ancient Chinese palaces to modern boardrooms in New York. Who was this man? And how did someone who died broke and forgotten become the invisible force behind the world's most successful civilizations? The year is 2024. Jiang Wei rushes through the crowded streets of Beijing, clutching his phone, late for work again. He passes elderly people practicing Tai Chi in the park, business people bowing slightly as they exchange cards, children walking respectfully behind their grandparents. Zhong doesn't think about it, but every single one of these actions follows. Rules set by a man who lived when the world was completely different. A man who never could have imagined skyscrapers, smartphones, or subway systems. Yet somehow, his ideas work better in our modern world than they did in his own. Picture this: China, 551 BCE. No, forget what you think you know about ancient China. Forget the kung fu movies and the wise old masters on mountaintops. This was a world at war with itself. Imagine if America suddenly broke apart into 50 different countries, all fighting each other. Brothers killing brothers, cities burning, millions of refugees wandering the countryside with nowhere to go. That was China during the spring and autumn period. The old empire had collapsed. Warlords carved up the land like a birthday cake, each wanting the biggest piece. Honor meant nothing. Promises were lies. The strong crushed the weak, and nobody cared about right or wrong anymore. In this chaos, in a small, unimportant state called Lu, a baby was born. His name was Kang Q, but you know him as Confucius. Here's what's crazy. This baby, born into a world falling apart, would grow up to create the blueprint for putting it back together. But first, he had to survive. Kong Kaiyu's father died when he was 3. His mother, struggling to feed her children, moved them to the capital city. They were poor, not just can't afford luxuries, poor. We're talking eating 1 meal a day and sleeping on the floor poor. Young Kang Q worked in the fields. He managed granaries, counting sacks of rice for wealthy merchants. He herded cattle and sheep, jobs that educated people looked down on. But here's the first clue to his genius. While other kids from noble families refused to do common work, Kong Q learned from everyone. The farmers taught him about seasons and patience. The merchants taught him about trust and fairness. The laborers taught him about dignity and hard work. He was building a library of human experience that would later change the world. But then tragedy struck again. When Kong Q was 17, his mother died. Picture this moment. A teenage boy, alone in the world. No money, no connections, no safety net. In most stories, this is where the hero gives up or turns to crime. Kong Q did something different. He decided to learn everything he could about how to make the world better. Remember Zhong Wei, rushing through Beijing. His company just promoted him because he stays late to help co-workers, always keeps his promises, and treats everyone with respect, from the CEO to the cleaning lady. Zhong thinks these are just good values his grandparents taught him. He has No idea he's following a 2,500-year-old instruction manual written by an orphaned teenager who refused to give up on humanity. So what did Confucius do after losing everything? He started teaching, not in a school or university. Those barely existed. He taught under trees, in markets, on roadsides. Anyone who wanted to learn could join him. His first students were other young men from poor families, guys who couldn't afford the expensive private tutors that rich kids had. But here's what made Confucius different from every other teacher in China. He didn't just teach facts. He taught people how to become better human beings. Think about your favorite teacher, the one who didn't just fill your head with information, but actually changed how you see the world. That was Confucius, except he was doing it 2,500 years ago in a world where most teachers just made students memorize ancient poems. His revolutionary idea was simple. Anyone can become a good person if they practice goodness every day. Sounds obvious, right? Wrong. In Confucius' time, people believed goodness came from birth. If you were born noble, you were automatically good. If you were born poor, you were stuck being bad. Confucius said, "Nonsense." He looked at his students, farmers, sons, merchants' kids, orphans like himself, and said, "You can become the best version of yourself if you're willing to work at it." This was revolutionary. This was dangerous. Because if poor people could become noble through their actions, what did that say about rich people who acted terribly? Ms. Lim teaches mathematics to a diverse group of students in Singapore. The star of her class isn't the wealthy banker's daughter. It's Ahmed, a refugee from Somalia, who studies 12 hours a day and helps other students with their homework. Ms. Lim doesn't know it, but she's proving Confucius' point every day. Character matters more than background. As Confucius' reputation grew, he attracted more students. Soon he had dozens, then hundreds of followers traveling with him across China. But he wanted more than just to teach individuals. He wanted to fix the whole broken system. So he made a bold decision. He would visit every ruler in China and convince them to govern with kindness instead of force. This started what historians call his wandering years, 13 years of traveling from kingdom to kingdom, offering his services as an advisor. Picture this, a middle-aged teacher with a ragtag group of students, walking dusty roads between hostile kingdoms, carrying nothing but scrolls and ideas. They were often hungry. Sometimes they were surrounded by enemy soldiers. Once, they nearly starved when trapped between two armies. But Confucius never gave up. Why? Because he had discovered something that would change everything. 5 simple principles that could transform any society from chaos to harmony. And here's the crazy part. These same 5 principles are still transforming societies today. What did Confucius figure out that nobody else had? He realized that all human problems come from the same source. People not knowing how to treat each other properly. Sounds simple. It's not. Think about every conflict in your life, every argument with your family, every workplace drama, every political fight you see on social media. Strip away all the complicated details, and you'll find the same basic problem. People treating each other badly. Confucius created 5 tools to fix this. 5 keys that unlock human cooperation. The first key is Ren, which means seeing every person as truly human, worthy of respect and kindness. Not just your friends, not just people who look like you or agree with you. Everyone, Confucius taught. Do not impose on others what you do not wish for yourself. Wait, doesn't that sound familiar? It should. Every major religion and ethical system has some version of this golden rule. But Confucius was teaching it when most of the world still believed might makes right. In 2019, a tech startup in Shenzhen was failing. The CEO, Li Ming, was about to fire half his staff to save money. Instead, he remembered his grandfather's teachings about Ren. Li Ming took a pay cut, asked his management team to do the same, and instead of firing people, he retrained them for new positions. The company not only survived, it became one of China's fastest-growing tech firms. Li Ming followed a 2,500-year-old principle and saved 200 jobs. The second key is Li, which is often misunderstood. People think Li means boring ceremonies and empty traditions. Actually, Li is about creating patterns of behavior that show respect. Think about it. Why do we shake hands when we meet someone? Why do we say please and thank you? Why do we hold doors open for people behind us? These little rituals create trust between strangers. They signal, I respect you, I'm not a threat, we can work together. Confucius realized that societies with strong positive rituals are more peaceful and prosperous. Ever notice how successful companies have strong cultures? Google's don't be evil, Apple's attention to design, Toyota's continuous improvement. These aren't just slogans. They're modern versions of Li, shared rituals that align everyone's behavior toward common goals. The third key is Yi, which is about doing the right thing even when it's hard, even when nobody's watching, even when it costs you something. Confucius taught that a society is only as strong as the integrity of its individuals. In 2020, Dr. Li Wenliang, a Chinese ophthalmologist, noticed a strange new virus in Wuhan. He could have stayed quiet to protect his career. Instead, he warned his colleagues, even though he knew he might get in trouble with authorities. Dr. Li was following Yi, doing what was right, regardless of personal cost. His actions probably saved millions of lives by giving the world early warning about COVID-19. The fourth key is Z, which isn't just being smart or knowing a lot of facts. It's practical wisdom, understanding how to apply knowledge in real situations. Confucius said, real knowledge is knowing the extent of one's ignorance. Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors, follows this principle. He only invests in businesses he understands completely, and he's quick to admit when he doesn't know something. This circle of competence approach, knowing what you know and what you don't, is pure Confucian. Z, the fifth key, is Shin, which means keeping your word, being reliable, acting with integrity. Confucius said, a person without trustworthiness cannot accomplish anything. Amazon's success is built on Shin. Jeff Bezos obsessed over customer trust, even when it hurt short-term profits. Amazon would lose money on returns and refunds to build long-term trustworthiness. This strategy, based on a 2,500-year-old principle, made Amazon one of the world's most valuable companies. These 5 keys, humanity, ritual, righteousness, wisdom, and trustworthiness, aren't ancient history. They're being used right now, today, by some of the most successful people and organizations in the world. But here's what's really amazing. Confucius figured this out in a world without science, without psychology, without any of our modern understanding of human behavior. How did he do it? After years of wondering, Confucius finally got his chance to prove his ideas worked. The ruler of Lu offered him a government position, not just any position, Minister of Justice, one of the highest offices in the kingdom. This was it. his moment to show that kindness could govern better than force, and for a brief, shining moment, it worked. Crime dropped, corruption disappeared, trade increased. People felt safe walking the streets at night. Other kingdoms were amazed. How was tiny Lu becoming so prosperous and peaceful? But then politics intervened. Neighboring rulers, worried that Lu's success would make their own failures obvious, sent beautiful dancers and expensive gifts to Lu's duke, distracting him from governance. Kang Qiu watched his reforms crumble. Frustrated and heartbroken, he resigned his position and went back to wandering and teaching. Most people would call this a failure, but Kang Qiu had planted something that would outlast every emperor, every dynasty, every kingdom in China. He had created the world's first training program for ethical leaders. Walk through Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo, Taipei, or Hong Kong today. What do you see? Safe streets, clean cities, efficient governments, high-performing schools, strong economies. These societies aren't perfect, but they consistently rank among the world's safest, most prosperous, and best-governed places. Coincidence? Or the result of 2,500 years of Confucian influence shaping how people think about duty, education, and social responsibility? Here's the thing about Kang Qiu's influence. It's everywhere, but it's invisible. Like gravity, you can't see it, but it shapes everything. In education, the idea that education can transform anyone is Kang Qiu. The belief that teachers deserve special respect is Kang Qiu. The concept that learning should develop character, not just intelligence, is Kang Qiu. Meritocracy, the idea that people should advance based on ability rather than birth. Kang Qiu invented it. Why do Asian students consistently outperform others in international tests? It's not genetics, it's culture. Cultures shaped by Kang Qiu's belief that education is the great equalizer, that hard work can overcome any disadvantage, that learning is a moral duty. In business, the idea that companies should have values beyond making money is Kang Qiu. The belief that long-term relationships matter more than short-term profits is Kang Qiu. The concept that leaders should serve their followers, not the other way around, is Kang Qiu. Why do Japanese companies like Toyota have such loyal workforces? Why do South Korean companies like Samsung invest so heavily in employee training? They're following Confucian principles of mutual obligation and continuous improvement. In government, the idea that rulers should earn their authority through virtue, not force, is Kang Qiu. The belief that government should serve the people is Kang Qiu. The concept of professional civil service, based on merit rather than connections, is Kang Qiu. Singapore's government consistently ranks as one of the world's least corrupt and most efficient. South Korea transformed from dictatorship to democracy while maintaining rapid economic growth. These aren't accidents. They're the result of Confucian ideals about governance and civic duty. But Kang Qiu's influence isn't just about big societies and famous companies. It's about individuals making daily choices. Meet Sarah Chen, a nurse in Vancouver. Sarah works double shifts during the pandemic, not because she has to, but because she believes in duty to community, a value her Chinese immigrant grandparents taught her. My grandfather always said, "Small acts of kindness create great harmony," Sarah explains. I never knew he was quoting Confucius until I took a philosophy class in college. Meet Marcus Kim, a teacher in Los Angeles. Marcus spends his own money on school supplies and stays after hours to tutor struggling students. His Korean parents taught him that teaching is a sacred profession. In our family, we say teachers light candles in young minds, Marcus says. I thought that was just something my mum made up. Turns out it comes from Confucian tradition. Meet Dr. Priya Sharma, a researcher in London. Priya's lab is known for its collaborative culture and ethical research practices. She learned these values from her mentor, Professor Wong, who emigrated from Taiwan. Professor Wong always said, "Knowledge without virtue is dangerous." Priya recalls he was teaching us Confucian ethics without calling it that. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Confucius died in 479 BCE, thinking he had failed. His ideas seemed to die with him. For 300 years, China ignored his teachings. The country was eventually unified by the Qin dynasty, which brutally suppressed Confucian thought and burned Confucian books. The emperor literally tried to erase Confucius from history. It didn't work. Why? Because Confucius had answered fundamental questions that every human society faces. How do we live together without destroying each other? How do we create trust between strangers? How do we raise children who will make the world better? How do we choose good leaders? How do we balance individual freedom with social responsibility? These questions don't go away. Every generation has to answer them again. And for 2,500 years, billions of people have found Confucius' answers useful. Think about the challenges we face today. Social media creating division and mistrust. Companies prioritizing profits over people. Politicians lying without consequences. Education systems that teach facts but not character. Growing inequality and social unrest. Confucius faced similar problems in his time. Rulers who ignored their people's welfare. Merchants who cheated customers. Officials who sold their positions. Schools that taught memorization but not thinking. Societies where might made right. His solutions: build character first. Everything else follows. Create rituals that bring people together. Reward virtue, not just success. Education should transform the whole person. Leaders must earn authority through service. These solutions work as well today as they did 2,500 years ago. Maybe better, because we now understand the psychology behind why they work. Here's something Confucius couldn't have known. Modern science proves he was right. Psychological research shows that people who practice gratitude, respect, and self-discipline are happier, healthier, and more successful. Confucius taught these practices 2,500 years before psychology existed. Neuroscience reveals that ethical behavior literally rewires the brain, creating stronger neural pathways for empathy and self-control. Confucius said, "Virtue becomes habit." Through practice, he was describing neuroplasticity before anyone knew what a neuron was. Behavioral economics research proves that trust and cooperation create more wealth than competition and exploitation. Confucius built entire societies on this principle when most people believed zero-sum thinking was natural. Organizational psychology studies consistently show that companies with strong ethical cultures outperform those focused only on profits. Confucius taught this when business ethics wasn't even a concept. The man was a scientist without a laboratory, conducting experiments on human nature across entire civilizations, and his experiments worked. So where does this leave us? In a world facing climate change, inequality, political polarization, and technological disruption, what can a 2,500-year-old teacher tell us? Everything, because the core challenges haven't changed. We still need to figure out how to treat each other with dignity, create trust in institutions, raise children with strong character, choose leaders worthy of authority, balance individual desires with collective needs. Confucius' tools, humanity, ritual, righteousness, wisdom, and trustworthiness, aren't outdated. They're more relevant than ever. The humanity to see beyond our tribal divisions, the ritual to create positive patterns in our digital interactions, the righteousness to do what's right for future generations, the wisdom to know when we don't know enough, the trustworthiness to keep our promises to each other and to the planet. You don't need to be Chinese to benefit from Confucius' insights. You don't need to study ancient texts or learn classical Chinese. You just need to ask yourself Confucius' fundamental question: what kind of person do I want to become? Not what do you want to achieve, not what do you want to have. What kind of person do you want to be? Then work on becoming that person, one small choice at a time. Be patient with yourself. Confucius said, "It does not matter how slowly. You go as long as you do not stop." Be patient with others, he taught. The person who asks questions is embarrassed for 5 minutes. The person who doesn't ask questions is embarrassed for life. Be committed to growth. He believed by 3 methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. Here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, try living by one of Confucius' principles. Week 1, practice Ren, which is humanity. Look for the humanity in every person you encounter. The difficult customer, the annoying coworker, the political opponent whose views you hate. Ask yourself, what would it look like to treat this person with genuine respect? Week 2, practice Li, which is proper conduct. Create small rituals that show respect for others. Put your phone away during conversations. Thank people who serve you. Hold doors. Listen without interrupting. Notice how these tiny acts change the energy around you. Week 3, practice Yi, which is righteousness. Do one thing that's right but difficult. Have a conversation you've been avoiding. Admit a mistake. Stand up for someone who can't defend themselves. Feel the strength that comes from acting on your values. Week 4, practice Chin, which is trustworthiness. Keep every promise you make, no matter how small. Show up when you say you will. Follow through on commitments. Be someone others can count on. Watch how this changes your relationships. Week 5 and beyond, practice C, which is wisdom. Embrace learning. Ask questions. Admit when you don't know something. Seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Become the kind of person who makes everything around them a little bit better. Confucius died in 479 BCE, disappointed that he hadn't changed the world. He was wrong. He changed everything. Not through force or wealth or political power, but through the quiet revolution of human character development. Today, in boardrooms and classrooms, in homes and hospitals, in laboratories and legislatures, people are using his tools to build better lives and better societies. Most of them don't even know his name, but they're living proof that one teacher's vision of human potential can echo across millennia. The ripples from that small classroom in ancient Lu are still spreading, still transforming lives, still proving that the power to change the world lies not in conquest or domination, but in the simple choice to become a better person. Confucius' greatest teaching wasn't about philosophy or politics or social systems. It was about possibility. The possibility that any person from any background can choose to live with dignity, purpose, and virtue. The possibility that small acts of goodness can create large waves of change. The possibility that the future can be better than the past if we're willing to do the work of becoming better ourselves. That possibility is still alive today. In you, in your choices, in your daily decision to be the kind of person who makes the world a little bit brighter. Confucius couldn't have imagined smartphones or space travel or artificial intelligence, but he understood something timeless about human nature. We are at our best when we bring out the best in each other. That truth doesn't age. That wisdom doesn't expire. That hope doesn't fade. So the next time you face a difficult choice, remember the teacher who refused to give up on humanity. Remember that your character is your destiny. Remember that small actions have large consequences. Remember that the world is waiting for the best version of you. And ask yourself the question that started it all. What kind of person do I want to become? The answer to that question is Confucius' greatest gift to you and your gift to the world.